Upgrades.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. The name of this film here is Reptile and is directed by Grant Singer. Here's the quick synopsis. Following the brutal murder of a young real estate agent, a hardened detective attempts to uncover the truth in a case where nothing is as it seems, and by doing so dismantles the illusions in his own life. And this one stars Benicio del Toro, Justin Timberlake, Alicia Silverstone, Michael Pitt, Carl Gustman, I'm sorry. Reptile is very reminiscent of early David Fincher work. That's the best way to put it. It is very reminiscent of that. This type of crime thriller that Reptile is, we don't get anymore on screen. As we're introduced to the character played by Benicio del Toro, was Detective Tom Nichols. And we see just how much he pursues the case. So when we get the death of this real estate agent, who is the character who played by Justin Timberlake, Willie Grady, it's his girlfriend who gets murdered. And when that murder takes place, the way that it is set up for the murder to take place, very reminiscent of mid-90s crime thrillers. I absolutely love this element of this film as we see them struggle early on in their relationship and them getting into this house and her missing a big event for him. And all of that setup that happens. And then when we get the murder that takes place, the murder takes place off screen, which is, again, key elements of the 90s crime thrillers where you didn't see, but that was supposed to lead to the mystery of the storyline here. So when Detective Nichols takes the case over and we get him and his partner attempting to piece everything together, this movie is extremely slow moving. As they're piecing it together, it kind of moves fast for them to get to the conclusion of actually, or his thoughts of actually what happens. We kind of get there fast. And then this movie drops the bottom out of you and slows down tremendously as the acts go on in the film. It is one of the most puzzling things humanly possible here. Now, even for crime thrillers of yesteryears, I'm going to call it at this point, what we had were normally cops who, when they were figuring out the case, they figured it out with the audience. So it didn't leave the audience of thinking like, wow, this is a bad cop, because I saw that coming a mile away. Here in Reptile, they make the biggest mistake humanly possible of the audience catches on the clues that you would assume Tom would catch on to. And they're very big clues. It's an issue with a drug bust in this film. It's a clue that's done with this drug bust in this film. It's a clue that the audience gets to see. Tom sees it, but it's never brought into question why he sees what he sees. It's so puzzling what was going on there. It leaves you just so confused about this film here. Now, one thing Mr. Singer does a great job at is the mood and the setup shots. Those are really good. He does a great job at doing that, of amping up the thrilling horror aspects of this type of crime thriller, which is necessary because that's how you get the audience even more intrigued in the storyline. And what helps him the most is Benicio del Toro is great in this movie. He is doing everything humanly possible to carry this film, but it's Benicio. So we kind of already know what we're going to get out of him. The problem is, from Alicia Silverstone to Justin Timberlake to Michael Pitt to everyone else in this film, they are god awful in this movie. It's just so puzzling how these characters are this badly written, or if the performances are just as bad as they are. And I'm going to lean possibly more on that these characters just wasn't fleshed out enough to be good characters, because I can't imagine some of these actors who I think are really good actors just gave horrible performances over and over and over again in this film, because that's what it feels like. Over and over again, they make dumb decisions, and it feels like there's no life in their performances. So when they put them next on screen with Benicio, it's just obvious that he's giving everything, and you don't feel like they're giving enough to make this story move. The other issue is the story. because for some odd reason, it slows down as it goes on. It just leaves the audience just at, by the time I was an hour into this film, it felt like I was about an hour and 40 minutes into this film, and I just wanted it to end. Because by that point, I literally had figured out the entire film. It's too many clues that's left. And it's supposed to be breadcrumbs that leaves alone for the audience to catch on, that the audience can be intrigued by what's going to happen next. But these breadcrumbs are full loaves, full slices of bread that's left out. So by the time you get to the third breadcrumb, you kind of figured out exactly what's going to go on in this entire film. And that's the problem. So by the time we get to Tom figuring out everything, the audience figured it out 30 minutes before he did. So then you're stuck watching the film slow itself down unnecessarily, like it's attempting to add to a runtime, when we would hope that would not be the case here, but that's what it feels like. It just feels like an incomplete story that was elongated to make it a feature film with bad performances in it. All of that is what makes Reptile, which is a film that, again, on premise, from the beginning of this film, even from the direction of this film, it has a lot of promise. That beginning setup is still really good. It's just that the film goes downhill from the beginning setup. And then from the speed that it moves through the first act, it slows down a little bit in the second act. By the time you get to the third act, it goes to a snail's pace about what's going to go on. And that is the downfall of this movie, because it literally makes no sense for it to do it. And for these other talented actors just to be out-acted by Benicio, I don't believe that's necessarily it. I think it is. The characters aren't fleshed out enough to give them enough to do. And because of that, we don't necessarily care about the big cover-up, because the scheme of the big cover-up is not as clear-cut as it needed to be to draw the audience in. And because you don't necessarily care about the characters that this is affecting, it's nothing there to invest you into Tom getting a big reveal about what's happening. All you care about is that Tom gets a faucet, that he can do this too, and it cuts on and off. That's literally like a huge plot point of this film. Makes no sense. But Reptile, brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival and Netflix. Out of a possible 10, I'm going to give Reptile a 4 out of 10. This film starts off promising and then slowly drags you through one of the worst crime thrillers you're going to see in recent memory here. Anchored by performance by Benicio del Toro that's really good, and performances by everyone else in the cast that is really bad. But you would just hope that the breadcrumbs that were left throughout the film that are supposed to engage the audience, you will hope to find out that was purposely done in a way to possibly get you to get in front of the cops' thoughts. Why would they do that? I've seen movies do that. Normally they're in film noir type of stories where they do those breadcrumbs and you normally get ahead of the detective in it. But this film doesn't move like that. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels like either sloppy editing or misplaced direction. It's one of the two there. But it's a flaw that's too glaring for anyone to overlook, and I think it's going to be a flaw with this film, even though, granted, I think it still has entertainment value because of what true crime is now to people. Like, this is a film that people can still get intrigued and watch. I think it's a bad watch. It's one of those movies where you watch it, know it's bad, but still possibly enjoy it. It could be that type of film for a lot of people, because it kind of is for me. It is something that I could see myself watching again because I already know how bad it is, and it wouldn't bother me to watch it again. But if it's something I had to pay attention to, I would be highly upset because it's just too many flaws in its work. But check it out when it drops. Let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. Peace, people.